Good afternoon, Dale.
Hey, Dale.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, these are these sort of situations. There's an infamous moment in the old Qatar World Cup where Cristiano Ronaldo ball came in. Cristiano claims he touched it, but there is absolutely no evidence of the fact he touched it. And it took Snicko behind the scenes to determine that it hadn't brushed off his head on the way in, otherwise it would have been offside. So now we're going to be able to see that sort of Snicko to help explain why a decision's been made.
Yeah, well, ahead of the World Cup in 2022, we knew that FIFA had brought in this ball technology, which meant that they knew that when the ball had been touched for the offside technology, they knew the exact point that had happened. Now, we didn't know at the time that they were able to use it for different things. So we had this game between Portugal and Uruguay when Ronaldo celebrated and insisted it was his goal. He said, it's mine, no matter what anyone says. Unbeknownst to him, that Adidas the next day released the evidence that said that the ball came across and there was no touch at all by Ronaldo on his head, and it was a goal for Bruno Fernandes. So this is basically that same technology, but now we get to see it in action. And it's basically like you would with the cricket. There's basically a flat line, and then when the ball goes past the player, if it touches him or not, then you will get the spike. Now, obviously, the number of times that will happen is it's very few, but it can be used for other things like that. For instance, most importantly, handball situations, whether a player is touched his arm before it goes in. I mean, the number of times in the Premier League we get situations whereby they can't decide if it's touched the arm, and they spend like 2 to 3 minutes rocking them forwards and backwards on the camera to try and work out if it has or not. Now, this will actually give a spike whenever the ball has touched something through that technology, so it should make sure that anything like that is really, very quick.
All this technology is in a microchip in the ball. So I'm sure a lot of people out there saying, well, why haven't we got all of that technology in the ball in the Premier League?
Yeah, well, at the moment, it was only in the World Cup. It's not even in the Champions League. It's not in Serie A. Now, we're told that it's not an Adidas ball situation, but the World Cup ball is Adidas. The Euro 2024 ball is Adidas. So there is a link there, but we are told that that's not the real reason. It's more about the cost of doing it across such a large number of games rather than just a concentrated, like Euros is 51 matches. But you would like to think that in a couple of years' time, maybe, that all the leagues will get it, because clearly it's not just good for these delays over handball, but it makes the offside far more accurate in terms of when a player has passed the ball to a teammate.
Of course, I've got in my head an old school microchip, heavy in the middle of the ball. It'll just be like a stamp, wouldn't it? It'd be like a very thin. I'm amazed it's that sensitive, Dale.
Yeah, well, they say it can detect when it's been touched at any point. And the problem is that how many times do you really see a handball situation? How many times do you really see a question about whether a player's touched the ball before they scored? It could be we go through these 51 times and we never see Snicko once throughout. Unlike in something like cricket, where you might get it once every few overs.
Another thing we're going to see in this tournament are maybe better explanations, technical explanations for why a decision has been made, the same that gets sent to the commentators. So UEFA put out an example of the sort of thing you'll see on the screen. Penalty, handball offence. Germany's number 9 touches the ball with his left arm, which was in an unnatural position above the shoulder and making his body bigger. So pretty much spelling out why they've made the call.
Like a full TED Talk.
It is basically a little TED Talk, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is all well and good, but the problem is it doesn't explain to the viewers or anyone else the difference between one handball and another. It just says why one's been given. It won't say why one hasn't been given. Yeah. So you won't get an explanation of something like that. And Roberto Rossetti, who's the head of UEFA referees, said in the press conference yesterday that handball is a never-ending story. It's the one thing that players are always been asking about when he went around all the teams before the tournament. So you can put these descriptions of how why handball's been given, but we can pretty much see this anyway. The question is, for us as fans, is why is that different to one that wasn't given earlier in the match or in the next match? And so while this information is better than the nothingness that we had before, we're a long way from it being perfect. And this is only going to be for when the VAR gets involved and changes the decision. So everything else will still involve the inertia of not knowing.
We were talking in the office earlier on, and I sort of forgot at the last tournament at the World Cup, sort of the 12-minute extra times and the 14-minute extra times. Do you think we're going to see that again, Dale?
No, UEFA is very different on this, and it's quite strange because for instance, in the Champions League last season, there was 59 minutes and 40 seconds was the average time in games, and they didn't do anything about time. And the season before, it was 60 minutes. So that's very different to domestic leagues that have been operating on 50 to 53 minutes and really wanted to do something to get that ball in play time up. Now, in the Champions League and in the Euros, UEFA say our referees are very strong and everything. They make sure play gets restarted quickly, and we don't see the same amount of time lost. We are getting an hour's play anyway, so we don't need to change what we are doing to get that ball in play, to improve that ball in play time. So you will not see the 100-minute games on a regular basis in the Euros.
Something we are likely to see is quite a lot of yellow cards for dissent, because you talked about Rossetti there, the head of the UEFA referees. He said they're going to clamp down on players getting around the referee, getting in the referee's face. Only the captain will be allowed to speak to the referee. I mean, this has been in place for a while, but I think they've just reminded them. He said all the players are on board. Everybody thinks it's a great idea, but you wonder in the heat of battle whether we're going to see some cheap yellows that could lead to reds as well.
I mean, we see variations on this all the time, don't we? I mean, we had it at the start of the last Premier League season, and you just wonder when if it's going to have any type of effect. And it was the one issue that raised the most questions at the press conference, actually. People wanting to understand exactly how this is going to work. Is it going to be strictly applied? And Roberto Rossetti was really insistent that they're going to clamp down on any type of dissent. They want to make sure that only the captain speaking to the referee. And there is actually a season-long trial about to start for this through the lawmakers. They've invited leagues to trial it. It's going to have a very special signals to made by the referee where he's designating only the captain can speak to me, just to try and create that situation whereby the players know that you're overstepping the mark. Now, Roberto Rossetti gave some examples of the bookings from Champions League matches of players being overcritical with the referee. He wants to make it clear that players can make their case to a referee, but if they continue on, or if they are over exuberant in their hand gestures or whatever, they aren't showing respect to the referee, then they will get booked. And it is very similar to what the Premier League tried and didn't really manage to continue on throughout the whole season.
Could be interesting to see what happens,
and
whether they do clamp down on it or they kind of ease off during the tournament. Because, referees are thinking, do I want to give a yellow for that? I know I should, and I'll probably get, but do I want to spoil the game? It's going to be a difficult balance.
It will be.
Dale, we will catch up with you during the tournament, I'm sure.
Thank you, Dale.
Thanks very much.
Great to speak to you guys.
Dale Johnson there. You can follow Matt as VAR and refereeing. He's at Dale Johnson, ESPN. He's very much the man in the know.
Paul Hawksby and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.